So I wanted to touch on why the shape of the Earth is of utmost importance and why this topic just infuriates me so much. So to go back a little bit, my journey, I guess my modern journey with all this, I say modern because I've always been one to wonder things. I've always wondered why we're here, the meaning of life. You know, you're born, you live, you die. I've always wondered these things. So that's sort of, it's always been there with me, but my modern day journey really started, or basically 2 years now. It was September 2016. It was a guy at work. We're still friends today, actually. Um, I was fascinated back then about the solar system, like just fascinated by it. Like, I just got it into my head, and I took it as fact that we were on this rock that was, on this forever odyssey around the sun, and the other planets were orbiting around us, and the moon, was moving around us, and it was reflecting of the sun, and that's what eclipses were, and all that. And I was just into it, but I had this other conflict going on, like, why are we here? And we're always taught in the meaning of life and all this stuff, and it's like we're always taught from an early age that uh, we come to being because of the Big Bang, and then you can start to get into the whole concept of nothing and all that sort of stuff, and then they say, well, who created the creator and all that, and that's a legitimate question. Like that's I really want to find out. I want to find out the answer to all those things. You're certainly not going to find them, by following a concept of nothing. It's clearly not true. And then you get into evolution. Like they teach this shit as well. It's just it's pretty insane. But anyway, I was just absolutely just fascinated by how the Earth came to being. So that the theory that I landed on, and this is a theory that I had up to 2 years ago, was that when the Big Bang happened, we must have been, I don't know, we must have been remnants from the sun or something. I don't know, but we must have been, and you just took it as fact. There's no alternative. And we, how does it create them all perfectly? I shouldn't use the word create. How does it Big Bang them all? The whole thing just contradicts itself. It's crazy. But anyway, I landed on the theory that we were spat out at the absolute perfect from the sun, and Venus was just short, and that's why it's the ugly twin, and Mars was went a little bit too far, and that's why it's got the arid wasteland. That's sort of where I landed. It makes sense, huh? Makes sense. Anyway, I put this theory to this guy at work, and he just scoffed, and he said, it's not a workplace conversation, Brett, and all that. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right anyway. But I just, I don't know, a couple of weeks later, I just mentioned something about the moon landing, and he just seemed to snap. He just looked at me and he said, there was no moon landing. I went, what? It just never occurred to me that there was no moon. You hear chatter and all that, but they're just nuts, right? They're just nuts. They're just crazy people. You don't really listen to them. But anyway, he said, if I gave you a book to read, would you read it? Now, I'm not, I read the Bible. I really like the Bible. I'm reading it for the first time and I really like it, but I've never been much of a reader. I've probably read a dozen books in my life. And I really respect this guy, and I respected him back then. I said, yeah, all right. So I took it home and I read it, and I was just gobsmacked. It was called Wagging the Moondoggie by David McGowan. It's freely available. And basically it was just 130 pages of just pulling it apart of just how ludicrous it was on a physical level. Like just how stupid the whole concept, the whole idea was. I mean, and then from there, I sort of like, that was, I don't know, that was difficult. That was extremely difficult to hear that. And that, because growing up, I was always the sort of guy that, like, I was the kid where, both my brothers would be off playing on their skateboards and, being, teenage kids and all that. And I'd just be out there with my telescope, and I was just fascinated by the sky and the planets. I've always looked at the sky. I've just always, like, lots happens in the sky. Lots happens in the sky. I've always looked at it. And I wanted to be an astronaut, and I used to watch every satellite. What was it called? The shuttle launch. And I was devastated when it blew up, in '86. But that whole thing was a hoax. I mean, you look online, and it seems pretty apparent that all those people are still alive. It's just like, oh, okay. And some of those old, footages you see of NASA, like there's one there where it's like, oh, it's from about '82, I think, and the you can see like a production manager or something in the background. He's got like headphones on and shit. It's just, and it was clear it was just this model. And some of the footage of them when they do their spacewalks and shit. It's just like, wow. And that really hurt. That was a really difficult period for me. Like it probably took me a couple of weeks just to sort of admit to myself that it was true. And then from there, it was like the inner beast was released, but there was always I don't know, there was always a feeling of dread that I'd never find the answers to this stuff, that it'd just keep opening more things up. And people warned me about it because I was quite vocal to start with. I'm not now. I'm pretty quiet now, says the guy doing a clip online. But I don't know. I just want, my journey out there. I want it, I want it recorded because it's my journey, and this is why I think these things are important. And, we're in the state we are today, I forgot where I was. I'll do this sometimes. Yeah, it's sort of it took me once from I moved on from the moon landing because it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious. I don't even really watch stuff on it anymore. I just if I'm at someone's house and I hear it on the TV, I'll listen in to see how they're still protecting this hideous lie. Like it's just what do they call it? It's the biggest achievement of mankind, and the whole thing's just a hoax. Like Richard Nixon called them from a landline, and it's like, you go out to the beach. You go to the beach, and you can't get a signal. He called them from a landline. It's just, and that footage of them when they got back from their moon journey, it's just, there's footage there where they faked it and all that, and it's just, oh. Yeah, but anyway, from there I sort of went, I went straight to flat Earth, and I used to, well, not straight to flat Earth. I did a few other things first. I did the whole, 2001 thing. I mean, I call it that because, I watch clips on YouTube, and it seems now if you even say it, you get like these copyright strikes and shit. And it's like, why protect the truth like that? You don't, you know. Isn't it far easier than just to, condemn us to being idiots? Because if it was the truth, we would be idiots, and time would sort us out. But we're not idiots. We're not, and that's why we're getting so heavily censored. Yeah, and I did the whole 30s Germany thing, and that just knocked me for six. Absolutely knocked me for six. That one, I just that took me. I don't know. I was just in just this depressive state when I found the truth out about that. But that wasn't the truth. What I first found out wasn't the truth. It was just like the whole thing was bloody orchestrated. It was just orchestrated. It's about what's going on now in that place that seems to. I'm not going to say the name, but in that place, in red spoils in the moonlight, I referred to them as the master race, who are actually the victims. And it's so true, and that whole thing. But and that's what it's about. It's about that today. What's happening over there, and it's building up. It's really building up. And then I sort of found my way to flat Earth, and I found it really difficult to believe. And the whole way through it, I'm thinking these people are just crazy. They're just nuts, And I've always got this thing inside me where I pick up the truth, and this thing inside me just fights it really hard. But this other side, it's just obvious to me, But that side's getting very weak now, very weak now as I find out more and more truth about what's going on. I can assure you. But I went to flat Earth, and I called myself a flat earther for a while. I don't do that now because I don't 100% know that the Earth is flat. I don't 100% know, but I touched on it earlier. But we were all created with only truth. but man and Satan have basically, from a very early age, infiltrated our belief system. Now, as kids, we all thought the Earth was flat, didn't we? We didn't think it spun, and we didn't think it was hurtling through the air, did we? No. We were told the Earth does these things. Now, people screech at me all the time, proof. Now, I don't talk about it anymore because it becomes really, really tiresome. It becomes really tiresome. People, if someone brings it up and I get an opportunity, and I'm very measured in what I say, but I do sort of talk about it publicly. I will talk about it publicly there, but I don't now. I'm fairly quiet about it. But people screech for you. They screech for proof all the time and all that, and it's just like, yeah, what bigger proof do you need than this? There's a couple of things. It's look outside. Like, just look outside. There's absolutely no evidence of this Earth being a ball. If it was a ball, everything would be down from you, wouldn't it? Unless you're on the bottom of it, which means everything would be up. So if you take off from the North Pole on the globe during the equinox, because during the equinox it's straight up, isn't it? But there's no up and down, right? To get this shit in space and all that. But anyway, because that's what they do. They just overcomplicate it to within an inch of its life with their massive equations that all just make no sense. They're just jibber jabber, and that's why they're so long and complicated, because they have to add up to themselves, and they actually don't. They're all occultic, and they're just horseshit. The whole thing is just horseshit. How does something that's so how does something that comes from nothing hold so much perfection? It's like everything is just perfect all the time. How long it takes a year, the sun's always where it should be. The moon does weird things in terms of the north-south thing, but it's always in the right phase. It rises when it should, and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it has to be created. It simply must be. It can't just be random. It just defies all logic. And you look around, and there's no evidence. And then there's all that. I mean, I could go on and on about all that, but it's just, to me, it's just so settled. And then you go, well, all this science they're teaching us and all that, it's all horseshit. And if you once you snap inside and you just go, right, this is all horseshit, you can see where they're mocking you, they're making fun of you while they do it. It's just so pitiful. And it's all the evidence of it being fake. It's just as far as the eye can see. If you want to look at it and you want to get out into the I'll say it's just there as far as the eye can see. So, to me, it's just settled, right? So if the Earth's not a globe, I'll put it to you this way. But well, okay, if it is a globe, which it isn't, why are they faking and lying to us while demonstrating to us that it is? So the ISS, all that footage is fake. Why fake it? Why do that? Now, don't say to me it's not fake. We just settled on that. It's fake. Okay. So you've got to lose that. All right. It's fake. So why? If it's true, why can't they do it? And they've told us they've done all these things and this thing on Mars, right? It's not there because Mars isn't real, because space isn't real. It doesn't exist. There's a roof over us. Right? Now they're lying about all this, and this is why it's so important. Why the lie? Why the lie? That's right there is why it's so important about the shape of the Earth, because it's so monumental, it's so huge. Like if you found out that your partner was lying, having an affair or whatever, right? You'd want to know. You'd want to know why. You'd want to know everything about it. Once it was settled that it was true, you wouldn't let him get away with it. But, we let them get away with this. We do, and this is why the spiritual fight's being lost. Like, since I found Jesus about 2 months ago now. And it was a torturous journey, the 22 months between the moon landing and then, oh my goodness, was that hard. Oh my goodness, that was hard. But where I I'm starting to land on it now is that go back to when we were born. We were born to truth. All we had was truth. and what it's up to, what we've got to do now, or what I feel I've got to do, or what I intend doing, is getting closer to that truth. And it just snapped one day. It just snapped inside me. I was listening to a sermon. I was listening to a sermon about Pastor Charles Lawson. He's great actually, but he really shits me about the globe thing. He's such a man of God, and he preaches the word so truthfully and ferociously. But oh my goodness, he gets into he gets into the globe and all that, and he just can't see it, and he won't see it, and he's just infuriating. But he was doing this sermon. He was doing this sermon about hell. And I just thought, I've always thought there was a God. I've always thought there was a creator. I always rejected evolution, all that, but I just couldn't, I couldn't get my head around this whole Jesus thing. I just couldn't, I couldn't get my head around it. I couldn't get my head around, how to reach that point, because it's 100% faith, right? But anyway, I was watching this sermon about hell, and I thought, well, that's true. All that's completely true. Has to be, right? Has to be, because the Bible says it. The more I read the Bible, and since I found Jesus, oh my goodness. So I started reading the Bible last year. I read Genesis and Exodus, and it just made hardly any sense at all. And then I started the New Testament. I read the book of I read Matthew. And then about 3 months ago, I started the New Testament again. But then I found Jesus while I just started Mark. So as soon as I did that, I went back and read Matthew again. The whole thing was completely different. The whole thing was completely different. It was it was just like I was looking at it through a whole new lens. I understood the parables. At one point I would have been, why the hell's he talking about a twig and withering vines and sticks and stuff? I'd be like, what's he on about? But it all sort of, the whole thing just started to gel inside me. I thought, wow, this is incredible. And, Jesus is truth. Jesus is truth. He says it numerous times. He says it numerous times during the New Testament. And it's everywhere. It's as far as the eye can see. And that's what I'm doing. I'm drawing closer to that truth. And that's why the shape of the earth is just so absolutely pitiful. Pitiful. Pivotal. And there's also a verse in John. I can't think of the actual verse now, but it basically, I used to call myself a truther because I was in relentless pursuit of truth. This was up until 3 months ago. I was like this. And, I can't remember, where was I? Yeah, it was a chapter in it was a verse in John, and it basically just said somebody asked him, are you a god? And Jesus said something like, "Oh, I'm not from this world," and then he just said, "Oh yeah," he come out with it, "I am the truth," and I just went, "Whoa," and that was at the same time. It was the same morning I heard that sermon from Pastor Lawson, and I don't know. I looked up into the sky, and the sky changed colour, and I just had this whole thing happen, and I just went, whoa! And ever since then, I've been a follower of Christ, and it's an incredible feeling. It's an incredible feeling. It's helped me in so many ways that I never knew it could have, and they're just byproducts of it. It's just to know. It's just to know that it unlocks all those answers I had as a kid. The meaning of life, why are we here, and all that. These are the things I'm looking into. These are the things I'm studying, and you watch things and you read things, and then you go back to the Bible, and you just look at, I don't know, you just look at things in a whole new light. It's like at the moment I'm really thinking a lot about the Garden of Eden. My mate, the same guy I referred to earlier, up in the mate I referred to earlier, He won't have it. But I'm sort of looking into the Garden of Eden um, wasn't on earth. It was sort of a spiritual realm. He won't have it. He won't have it. But it's sort of a spiritual realm, and it's got something to do with Satan and giving us free will, and this is how we. And that's how Satan was in the garden. Because why was Satan in the garden if the earth was perfect, right? So Adam was created in God's image from the dust and of the earth, of the perfect earth, in the perfect garden, but yet Satan was there. And I think there's a heck of a lot in that. There's a heck of a lot in that. And I think that's where I'm thinking at the moment is that Satan somehow broke away from, the perfect heaven. How does all this happen? You know, they're big questions, and and I hope one day to find all this stuff out. But why was Satan there? Is that why we're here? I heard something the other day where a fellow was saying that we were all, you picture it as a court, and we all go up before Jesus, and he already knew what was going to happen before we went, because when we're created as spirits, when our spirit's created, we're either created good or bad, and it's what you do with it when you get to earth. And there's a whole reason why we came to earth. Why were we sent here? Are we all fallen angels? I mean, that could sound demonic, and I regret saying that in years to come. I don't know. But these are the things I wrestle with. Why are we here? Yeah, and you talk about the rapture and all this sort of stuff, and and this is where the shape of the earth is just critical, because there could be they're hiding things. What are they hiding? It must be precious what they're hiding, because they're sticking to this line that man went to the moon. It's just what are they hiding? The sun and the moon. Like when you come to the conclusion that the Earth's not a globe, what are their relationship to each other? The moon is self-illuminating. You can see that it gives off different light. It's colder. It's more putrefied than the sun. And the it's definitely electrical. Like you look up at it, it's definitely electrical. The moon, I think the thing where I'm at with the moon now is that it's got a real relationship with the sun, absolutely. And it's like it goes a little bit slower than the sun. It loses about 50 minutes a day to the sun, so it goes a little bit slower. And while it's waxing, it's like as it's losing pace with the sun, it's picking up and gathering speed till it clicks to this point where it's full, and all of a sudden it goes, I'm full now, and then it's sort of like it's still going slower than the sun, but it's getting closer to the sun because the sun's coming back up around it. See, it's doing a lap on it, and then when it's new, is that when it recharges, and it slowly gives off that charge as it travels back from the sun again. I don't know, is there something in that, but all that's just dismissed as, the moon's just this random rock that come from nothing that just goes around, the planet Earth, and it's just, the whole thing's ridiculous. So, that's about it. I think I've got a lot more. And as I say, I don't really talk about it much anymore. I just, if it comes up, I talk about it sometimes with my family, but I don't really, there's not a lot of point, because people don't want, either they don't want to know, or they don't get the bigger picture. But that's one thing I've learnt from Jesus is you don't. He said in one part of the Bible, he said something about, go to this town. If they don't receive you, move to the next. And if they receive you and they feed you and clothe you, he says you will stay there and preach the word. That's what you've got to do. And you know when people are either interested or they're at a place in their journey. I mean, I know, and I hope a lot of those people start coming to me now that I found Christ. I really hope so. But whatever, I'm just in His hands now. It's just I look for His word every day. I look for it, and
It's funny. I lead a completely different life now, and it's not because it's a really hard one to explain. I don't do it because they're rules, because I follow Christ now. It's just like it's the whole born again thing. It's so true. You know, you're saved at that instant. You know, where I heard that sermon and I read that passage in John. That's the moment I was saved. But I was born again when I just received. I don't know whether you receive a new spirit. I don't know, but it's just a new person. It's the rebirth. And is that connected back to the resurrection? I don't know. And then you start getting into the rapture and all that. It's a wonderful, wonderful story, guys. It is a wonderful story. It's a special story. And right now I can't get enough of it. I cannot get enough of it, and it's so good to be in this place. I hope that explains it. Thanks, guys.